Good evening and thanks for joining us. This is NTD Business. I'm Paul Graney. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson announces a new lockdown system. UK Pubs and Clubs Group gets ready to take legal action in case it means more shutdowns for them. Some wealthy Americans prepare for a tax hike if Joe Biden wins in November. One appraiser tells us his business is booming because of it. Two Stanford professors win the 2020 Nobel Prize for Economics. The research focuses on auction theory. It's used more widely than you'd expect. And China's central bank makes changes to stop the Yuan's rapid appreciation. We have analysis. Two American scholars have won the 2020 Nobel Prize for Economics. The impact of the research affects much of today's economy, from the way Google sells ads to how telecom companies buy airwaves from the government.
Two economists from Stanford University won the Nobel Prize for improving how auctions work Monday. The Nobel Committee says their research benefited sellers, buyers, and taxpayers around the world.
Their basic research allowed them to invent entirely new auction formats. These new formats have been used in complex settings to the benefit of societies around the world.
Their research has had a big impact on the telecom industry, where private companies seek government licenses to use public-owned radio frequencies. The federal government used to hand these out for almost nothing. In 1994, authorities used one of the auction formats designed by the two economists and raised over $600 million. It then became a model for countries from Canada to India. The format has also been used to auction off electricity and natural gas. The tech industry has benefited from their work as well. For example, Google sells online advertising by auction. David Warsh, author of the Economic Principles blog, says that Google was able to adopt the method so quickly and seamlessly depended entirely on theory developed by Milgram and his competitors and their students. The 83-year-old Wilson was once Milgram's PhD advisor, and the two also happened to be neighbors. Milgram learned the news when Wilson came knocking at his door in the middle of the night. Wilson welcomed the news of the award. He struggled to think of a recent auction he participated in, but then he said his wife pointed out that he bought ski boots on eBay, and that was an auction. The Economics Prize is the last of the 6 Nobel Prizes announced each year.
And an official at the World Health Organization says lockdowns shouldn't be the primary way to control the virus. He told the UK media The Spectator last Thursday that lockdown should only be used to regroup resources and protect exhausted health workers.
And so we really do appeal to all world leaders. Stop using lockdown as your primary control method. Develop better systems for doing it. Work together and learn from each other. But remember, lockdowns just have one consequence that you must never, ever belittle, and that is making poor people an awful lot poorer.
The WHO estimates the lockdown's impact on global food supply chain could cause up to 130 million people to go hungry in 2020. Nabarro's statement was echoed by 14,000 scientists. They signed a petition against lockdown measures. NTD's Kevin Hogan spoke with one of them.
There are much smarter ways to do it. Why aren't we adopting those strategies? Why have we continued these lockdowns that cause so much harm?
The professor says we must protect the elderly who are vulnerable while letting others live their lives. And a group of English pub and nightclub owners have paused plans for a legal challenge against new lockdowns, for now at least. The industry is worried that new measures will threaten hundreds of thousands more jobs, and they're questioning the science behind closing down pubs and restaurants.
A group of UK pub and nightclub owners may have put legal action on hold, but they're still ready to take action if they need to. They want the evidential information used by the government to enforce the new lockdowns. In the UK today, the government announced details of its multi-tier lockdown strategy. The news comes one day after the WHO Special Envoy David Nabarro urged world leaders to stop using lockdowns as the primary control method.
I agree with what David Nabarro had to say. I think he's completely right.
We spoke to the CEO of Nighttime Industries Association, Michael Kill, whose organisation is helping push this legal action forward. He believes that based on data, the current proposed rules around nighttime businesses don't seem warranted.
If we go along the lines of Public Health England, is suggesting that restaurants and bars transmission rate is only 3 to 4%.
Infection rates are highest in the north of England. Only the city of Liverpool and its surrounding area have been placed on the highest tier of lockdown. New lockdowns come into effect this Wednesday.
You know, we are concerned that within Merseyside there is going to be a huge amount of businesses go to the wall and job losses because they just cannot keep sustaining this consistent lockdown.
The government has promised to provide assistance to businesses that have been impacted by the new rules. But Kill says business grants don't help enough, even if they continue after the end of the month.
But also the other challenge is the grant scheme is just not enough. I mean, £3,000 for some of these businesses, that's their sort of energy bill, let alone sort of the other costs that are implicated here.
He says they want to make sure financial support is proportionate to the lockdown measures.
And back in the US, another day, another update on the infamous stimulus package. The White House says Senate Republicans will accept any proposal the president puts forward. It blames Democrats for holding up the deal. But Democrats still say the Republican proposal doesn't include enough money for virus control measures. Here's the White House press secretary.
Well, I believe Senate Republicans would ultimately come along with what the president wants. The president noted that yesterday, too. We believe Senate Republicans are not what's blocking this. It is Democrats.
And while everyone keeps dragging things out, there's still the option of reallocating the unused money from the last package. Congress could then keep trying to figure out a bigger package later.
Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin and White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows wrote to members of Congress Sunday. They said now is the time for us to come together and immediately vote on a bill to allow us to spend the unused Paycheck Protection Program funds. The all-or-nothing approach is an unacceptable response to the American people. As of August, the Paycheck Protection Program still had about $130 billion left. The letter came after House Speaker Nancy Pelosi rejected the White House's latest offer. It was worth $1.8 trillion, up from an earlier $1.6 trillion offer. She wrote to Democrats, when the president talks about wanting a bigger relief package, his proposal appears to mean that he wants more money at his discretion to grant or withhold, rather than agreeing on language prescribing how we honor our workers, crush the virus, and put money in the pockets of workers. Meanwhile, White House economic advisor Larry Kudlow said President Trump might offer a larger stimulus package than the Democrats. He said it might not be for the entire package, but for key areas. Kudlow said Senate Republicans might support it if it's bipartisan.
One property appraiser tells us his business has tripled. He says wealthy Americans are worried about a potential tax hike after November, want to put things in order before then. Many are now rushing to finish their taxes before the end of the year. NTD's Phil Zoe has the details.
Some wealthy Americans are revising their estate plans. They're concerned about a potential tax hike on their property and assets after the November election.
There's an expectation at the end of a year that taxes will be higher.
Right now, the wealthy can leave about $11 million to their family, free of estate or gift taxes. But Democrats want to raise taxes back to where they were before Trump's tax bill. This could slash the tax exemption in half, down to $5.5 million. Tax and estate planning related businesses are seeing a flurry of new clients.
This year, we've seen our tax-related work roughly triple, the heaviest volume that we've seen in our 30-plus year history.
Miller says wealthy Americans are being proactive. They want to finish their taxes before the year's end.
And they're looking for any signs or clues or evidence or probability that there will be a change in tax policy.
Miller expects the wave of new business to continue.
I suspect we'll probably continue this until mid-December.
Phil Zoe, NTD News.
Wall Street ended higher today. The Dow rose almost 251 points or 0.88%. S&P 500 gained over 57 points or 1.64%. The Nasdaq had a big day. It's up almost 300 points or 2.56%. Amazon, Apple and other tech stocks rallied ahead of the quarterly earnings season. Apple is expected to unveil its newest iPhones on Tuesday. And Amazon will start its annual shopping holiday Prime Day on the same day. And investors are pricing in a Biden win. They're looking at possibly more infrastructure spending and less global trade uncertainty. Results from big U.S. banks will be in focus this week as well. JP Morgan and Citigroup are set to report on Tuesday. Overall, analysts expect third-quarter earnings for S&P 500 companies to fall about 21% from a year earlier. And Chinese authorities have lifted reserve requirements to allow money to be more easily converted into other currency. They want the yuan, China's currency, to become weaker against the dollar. A weak yuan makes exports more competitive. I discussed the move with FX Street's senior analyst Joseph Trevisani. I asked him why we've even seen the yuan appreciate so much since May.
Well, I really think that what you're seeing is a reversal of the pandemic premium, as I like to call it, that was put on the dollar. When things were looking grim in March and April for the actual pandemic, and then in the months after that for the world economies, the United States in particular, but others as well, that all played to the dollar's strength as a safety currency, and particularly back in March and April, to the dollar's strength as the currency of the country of choice for safe haven. It's still, as it always has been, the United States with a few other moderate and small players, such as the Japanese yen and maybe perhaps a little bit the Swiss franc. So it's really just the reversal of that that's been going on since the end of May, the beginning of June, that has led to the yuan appreciation, along with appreciation of a whole lot of other currencies as well. It's not just the yuan.
And then from a technical perspective, what have the Chinese authorities done to kind of ebb it? I know you said they changed the reserves requirement.
Well, I believe, I'd have to check this, they loosened the reserve requirements to make it a little bit easier to move money in and out. So that will make it easier for the Chinese yuan to be translated into other currencies, to be exchanged. If there are other technical aspects of that behind the scenes, I'm really not too sure of them. I don't think the Chinese have actually specified other than changing the reserve requirements.
And is it only for export reasons that the Chinese would like to keep the yuan relatively low?
Primarily, because if the yuan is high, then that actually benefits the Chinese domestic consumer because they have more buying power. If your yuan is worth, 2 to the dollar rather than 4 to the dollar, you get a good deal more for your purchase. But I think their primary interest is not the consumer economy in China, but it is the export valuation of the currency and the exports and the destination as China as a place for people to continue to invest and put in foreign direct investment. If you have a relatively weaker yuan, it's cheaper for foreign companies to invest in the country. They get more for their dollar or their euro when they invest, or their yen. So that's part of it as well. And right now, the Chinese economy and the Chinese foreign investment has been under pressure for more than 2 years since the beginning of the trade war with the United States.
And these investors who invest in China, do they just invest knowing, well, if the yuan starts to appreciate in value, we just kind of accept that the authorities will step in and kind of stem that appreciation? Do they just take that as a given the circumstances?
Well, I think they take it as a given that the yuan is going to be moving around. Because if you look at the historical, even you go back 3 years, there's been a wide range of the yuan. It went from about 6.25 3 years ago up to almost 7.17. So that's a pretty big variation, and we're right in the middle of that range. So if you are investing in China, you know these days that the yuan is going to move around. But the same can be said of almost investments in almost any other country. If the United States firm invests in Europe, the euro moves around, Japan. So it's not out of the ordinary, out of the range of business possibilities. What is more evident in China, of course, is that it's a managed currency. And so that the valuations of the yuan not only respond to market forces, but they also respond to government directives. And the government directives mean there's some aspect of international politics involved vis-a-vis the United States and others in the rates that they use. China has in the past, without saying so, made it clear that if certain things happen, then certain other things with the yuan will happen as well. So that's an additional factor, but none of these are new. These are the standard considerations for investing in China.
Of course. Joseph, appreciate your insights as always. Thanks so much.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
And still to come this evening, delivery companies and e-commerce giants are on a hiring spree for the holiday season, but retail is facing a hiring slump. And another top opioid maker files for bankruptcy. Lawsuits claim it helped fuel the opioid epidemic in the United States. More on that after the break. Welcome back. Consumers around the world have more than embraced online shopping this year, and experts say there's no going back. A research firm has estimated that U.S. e-commerce sales would increase to $710 billion this year. Globally, online sales are expected to rise more than 16% to nearly $4 trillion. Experts say the longer the pandemic goes on, it's more likely customers will stick to their new shopping habits, like curbside pickup and home deliveries. And a holiday hiring slump seems to be emerging this year. While e-commerce giants are seeing a hiring surge, retail businesses are bringing on fewer workers ahead of the busy holiday season.
According to an economist at job posting site Indeed.com, seasonal postings are down 11% compared to last year. She said reasons range from concerns about future sales and reduced capacity to supply chain disruptions. Employee work time management company UKG noted a similar trend. The company said that even as manufacturing continues to add shifts, the number of shifts in retail is flat, even as Christmas decorations are beginning to pop up in stores. According to a holiday report, UKG said 81% of retailers are bracing for holiday shifts to be understaffed due to employees being in and out of quarantine. And over a quarter of retailers surveyed for the report said they've prepared to offer staff additional compensation or other rewards to come into work if concerns about the outbreak become prevalent. Still, the UKG report found that 91% of retailers are confident, with over half being extremely confident, that stores will be open and fully operational on Black Friday. Meanwhile, UPS and Amazon say they're hiring 100,000 seasonal workers, and FedEx says it will hire 70,000 more people this holiday season.
And another major opioid maker has filed for bankruptcy. That makes the third one. It's swamped by lawsuits claiming it profited from fueling the opioid epidemic in the United States.
Drug maker Mallinckrodt plc said it filed for bankruptcy protection Monday. The company says it will restructure. It has a $1.6 billion plan to resolve all opioid litigation. The agreement was made with state attorneys general and U.S. cities and counties. They sued to get compensation for billions in tax dollars spent on the opioid epidemic. The company faces 2 upcoming opioid trials. It allegedly engaged in deceptive marketing promoting addictive painkillers. And in early August, it warned that its parent company and other units may also seek bankruptcy protection. This was after a judge forced it to pay rebates to Medicaid for hiking prices for its multiple sclerosis drug Acthar Gel. Its price per vial has risen from about $50 in 2001 to nearly $39,000 in 2019. It generated over 30% of the company's net sales last year. The company says it will pay $260 million over 7 years, and Medicaid programs will get 100% rebates on sales for the drug. A judge will likely halt litigation while it restructures.
And vaccine makers are working at a record pace to get a COVID-19 vaccine out. But this has raised some safety concerns among members of the public. But now insurance companies are saying there's nothing to worry about.
As the world races towards a vaccine, public concerns over safety are being stirred. That's already prompted 9 leading developers to issue a pledge to uphold scientific standards and testing rigour. More than 40 experimental COVID-19 vaccines are currently being tested on humans. Yet insurance companies who assess the risks of such trials say they don't see anything to be unduly concerned about. Insurer Allianz and brokers Gallagher and Marsh are among the leading players in clinical trials insurance. Executives at both told Reuters that premiums had only marginally increased so far, saying there is little structural difference to trials carried out in the past. The somewhat unfazed approach comes despite drug makers competing to shatter the fastest time in history for developing a vaccine, which stands at around 4 years. AstraZeneca and Oxford University temporarily suspended trials of their experimental vaccine last month after a participant fell ill. But insurers said such delays were not unexpected and could even reflect the extra caution of vaccine developers. Executives also said that premiums have not risen sharply because claims from trials are generally uncommon, adding that patients have often signed so-called informed consent agreements. There have been examples in the past of drug trials going catastrophically wrong, though. But insurance executives say they're rare, given the thousands of clinical drug trials being carried out every year. And that pharma companies and insurers are even more careful than usual with COVID-19 trials because there is so much at stake.
And still to come this evening, the United States Postal Service says it's planning to increase prices, but not every category will see price hikes. And an 11th century castle in Italy is specializing in bubble holidays. They're offering new activities for tourists who don't want to venture out. There's wine tasting and cooking classes. Find out more after the break. Welcome back. Sending mail might get a little more expensive in 2021. The U.S. Postal Service filed notice with the Postal Regulatory Commission and is planning to increase prices. The new proposal raises the price for first-class mail by 1.8% and all other categories by 1.5%. Some prices will remain unchanged, though, like the Forever stamp at 55 cents. Others will only go up 1 cent. The single-piece letter additional ounce is set to increase by 5 cents to 20. The Postal Service Board of Governors believe the changes will keep them competitive while also providing the agency with revenue. The Commission will review the changes before they're scheduled to take effect on January 24, 2021. And like other popular travel destinations, Tuscany in Italy has been particularly hard hit by the pandemic. Now a medieval castle there is offering families a safe place to stay on vacation.
Torre Palazzone is an 11th century castle in Tuscany, Italy. A British family bought it 12 years ago and turned it into a vacation destination. The owner says they've worked closely with the city to make sure they're compliant.
But we've been very lucky because with a villa holiday, it's a much safer option for a bubble holiday than staying at a hotel, for example. We can, really all of our guests are isolated in their own bubble and they're very, very safe.
Since the pandemic hit, the castle has introduced new activities. She says your imagination is the limit. They can arrange whatever you want to do so you don't have to leave the property.
And we can arrange all sorts of things for you on site. We could have wine tastings on site. Our chef is very happy to offer cookery classes, which are great fun.
She says the challenge now is getting tourists to come to Italy. She said lockdowns have made things difficult, and the international community needs to come to a consensus.
International travel is something that is economically important and that needs to be made as safe as possible as soon as possible, so that people can go back to having holidays. And particularly holidays like this one where the risk of infection is so small because people are just here in their own space.
She hopes international authorities can help so international tourists can reach safe holiday destinations.
We'll need to ask for some time off. That's the latest business updates for today. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.